Tour Historic Clifton Park, Part 1. Sites on the National Register of Historic Places. Hi, this is Regina Berry with the Clifton Park Half Moon Public Library. Thanks for joining me today for a brief tour of some of the most historic places in our community. The National Register of Historic Places is the federal government's official list of districts, sites, buildings, structures, and objects deemed worthy of preservation for their historical significance. Listed properties may qualify for tax incentives based on expenses incurred in preserving them. Properties will usually have a plaque or a sign, such as is pictured here. The passage of the National Historic Preservation Act in 1966 established the National Register and the process for adding properties to it. Nationally, there are about 80,000 properties on the list. Clifton Park has 11 entries as of 2014. In this video, we will look at 6 of them. First stop on our tour is the Cyrus Rexford House, located at 1643 Route 146 and Riverview Road in the hamlet of Rexford, so named for Cyrus's father, Eleazar, who was born there in 1787. Over time, the original farmhouse was enlarged into a Greek Revival-style home. Later, when Cyrus and his wife Hannah inherited it, they transformed it into a grand Victorian mansion, befitting the successful owner of a canal store and town supervisor for 7 years and justice of the peace. They raised 4 children there, and the house stayed in the family until 1990, after which it was run as a bed and breakfast for some years. Pictured here about 1900 is Hannah, her daughter Fanny, and granddaughters Rita and Holly. Recent residents of the home believe it to be haunted by the Rexford family. They have reported strange noises, music, and items that disappear and reappear. They think it may be high-spirited Holly, who lived in the home until her death at the age of 90. Here is the Cyrus Rexford house today. This private home has a 3-story main block built in 1883 with a 1.5-story rear block built around 1850. It also has a 1-story rear L. The main block has a steeply pitched hipped roof with bracketed overhang. The house features an elaborate mix of decorative detailing and a polychrome paint scheme, which serves to enhance and define the architectural elements. Also on the property is a carriage house and a gambrel roofed barn. It was placed on the National Register in 2011. Nathan Guernsey and his wife Nancy came to Clifton Park from Dutchess County, New York in 1783, just after the Revolutionary War. They built this lovely Federal-style brick home in 1791 in which to raise their large family. Nathan had served in the New York State Militia during the war and was now a prosperous farmer. Upon his death in 1822, the house was inherited by his eldest son, Nathan Jr. The younger Nathan was politically active, having held several offices in Half Moon and later becoming the second town supervisor of Clifton Park in 1829. Both Nathans and several family members are buried in the family cemetery west of the house. Succeeding generations have continued to own and love this home and celebrate its history, like this large group gathered to celebrate the home's 100th anniversary in 1891. Today, this house has been in family hands for well over 200 years. The house is located on the north side of Route 146, west of Waite Road. It has a center chimney, a fan light over the front door, and fan-shaped windows in the gables. The house contains 5 fireplaces and an attic chamber for smoking meats. Original hand-carved woodwork and moldings survive throughout the house. It was placed on the National Register in 2012. Straddling the Half Moon Clifton Park town line, the old Clifton Park Hotel was built between 1821 and 1831 by Ephraim Stevens, who became the first Clifton Park town supervisor in 1828. Originally known as Stevens Tavern, it was a focal point in town life, even serving as courthouse and jail for a time, and becoming an important stagecoach stop. The hotel is a 2-story, timber-framed building, sheathed in clapboard and topped by a gable roof. A massive 2-story wood portico was added in the 1840s, along with a 1.5-story addition. About 1859, now owned by Isaac Rogers, it became known as the Clifton Park Hotel. Rooms let for $1 a night. Dinner in the hotel restaurant was 25 cents, and a whiskey cost 50 cents. In the late 1890s, new owner John Brennison, seen here behind the bar, added a dance hall and stage. In the early 1900s, that room was used for roller skating, dances, and concerts. In the 1920s, ownership of the hotel passed to the Kukulski family, whose descendant still owns the building today. During Prohibition, legend has it that the bar was moved from one side to the other of the town line to take advantage of which town was dry or wet. The Kukulskis operated the hotel and restaurant into the 1960s. It ceased operation as a hotel in 1976 and has been vacant since then. The hotel was put on the National Register in 1998. While some rooms were still intact in the early 2000s and the building was stabilized and re-roofed in 2013, the exterior today looks sorely in need of attention. The Jonesville Store is located at the corner of Main Street and Long Kill Road in Jonesville. It was built sometime in the 1850s and expanded about 1900, which included raising the roof, as pictured here in the bottom photo. The building has a 2.5-story front block with a 2-story rear block. The frame building is sheathed and clapboard and has a gable roof. The front facade features a 1-story porch going the full width of the building. Notice in the top photo the pump for watering horses on the left and the plow sitting on the ground to the right. In the lower photograph, one man is holding a bicycle, which by 1900 had become a common mode of transportation. This building has had many owners over the years, and for most of its life was a general store and post office. In those days, the general store sold everything from bulk foods to shoes and hardware and candy. The men of the town gathered there to sit, visit, and chew tobacco, spitting it at the pot-bellied stove. Orders were delivered by horse-drawn wagon. In the winter, kids and families gathered there to go sledding on the steep hill next to the store. In recent decades, the building has evolved into various combinations of store and restaurant. In 2011, it was placed on the National Register. This past January, the building was bought by a local family and has recently reopened as a pizza bar, giving new life to this reminder of Clifton Park's rural past. The historic Jonesville Cemetery, located at Ushers and Long Kill Roads, was established in 1864 and designed by Burton A. Thomas. It's an example of the rural cemetery movement, popular in the mid-1800s. Its 11-plus acres were designed in the garden style, with winding paths, hills, and a park-like setting. Cemeteries were like pleasure gardens, where Victorians strolled and picnicked. The small community was named after James Jones, who ran the former Jonesville Hotel. He and his family are buried here. Also buried here are 2 Clifton Park boys who went off to fight in the Civil War and didn't come home. George Cornell and David Dater both died of typhoid fever aboard a medical ship, bringing them back home to recover. The boys were friends and died together on May 6, 1862. They were just 20 and 21 years old. The cemetery also includes the remains of 252 individuals who were relocated from another graveyard early in this cemetery's history and date between 1799 and 1863. Jonesville Cemetery remains an active burial ground with a dedicated Friends of the Cemetery support group. It's a lovely place for a peaceful stroll. Smith's Grain and Feed Store, located in the hamlet of Elnora, was built in 1892. In the days before shopping malls and Amazon, every hamlet in Clifton Park had its own general store that carried everything a farmer and his family would need to live and work. In 1895, it was purchased by George Smith and then operated by 4 generations of the Smith family. They ground their customers' corn and oats, made cattle feed, and delivered the coal that was unloaded at the Elnora Railroad crossing next door. It was the longest-running family store in Clifton Park when it finally closed in 1994. At almost 7,000 square feet, it is a 2.5-story frame building with a gable roof and 3 additions. It is sheathed and clapboard and has a standing seam metal roof topped by an air vent cupola. Also on the property is a 1.5-story railroad building dating to the early 20th century. After 1994, it became a restaurant called Crabapple Farm, and later the Main Street Grill, which has just recently closed its doors for good. It was put on the National Register in 2012 and appears to be currently up for sale. What will this historic site become next? I hope you enjoyed this tour. Please join me next month to tour the rest of the National Register properties in Clifton Park in Part 2 of this program. In the meantime, to see more historic images from Clifton Park and Half Moon, please go to the library's webpage at www.cphlibrary.org. Click on the Research tab, then the Local History page. Scroll down to the digital collections and click on Historical Photographs. Thank you for watching.